Today we are going to be working on the third comma rule, and that rule is use commas with addresses. So in your Google slide, you should have a page that looks kind of like this. What you're going to do is you will click and drag both the notes and the commas into the proper spaces. I will go ahead and give you the notes now. The commas you will do on your own. So our comma rule is use commas with addresses. You will place a comma between each element of the address. And I'll explain what that means here in a second. And then if the sentence continues, separate the last item with a comma. So the reason you place a comma between each element of the address is you are taking what you would write on an envelope and putting it in a sentence. So, and I'll do this here, an envelope, if you were labeling it to send to somebody, you would put the name, which could be a person or place. On the next line, you would put the street address, which could be like 123 Alphabet Street. And then you would put the city with a comma, just like our first rule, the 2-letter abbreviation for the state, and the zip code, which is usually a 5-digit number. So each of these lines is considered an element. So if you were to take this and put it into a sentence, you would put a comma right there and a comma right there. Because instead of being 3 separate lines, it is 1 line. The commas go between what would be the separate lines. If you want to make note of this somewhere to help you, that would be a very good idea. I also want to point out that usually the street name at the end, whether it be street, drive, boulevard, avenue, something like that, is usually abbreviated. And when abbreviated, there is a period. This is the only instance in which you would still place a comma after a period, as if it is an abbreviation. The example that I used with my first class was Martin Luther King Jr. There's always a period after his name, but if you were to write according to Martin Luther King Jr., you would still put that comma right there, and then you would continue your sentence with African Americans were treated unfairly in the 50s and 60s. So you would still put that comma after the period. The same concept if it's an abbreviation for an address. So an example of using the commas in this situation: she visited Cedar Point Amusement Park located at 1 Cedar Point Drive with a comma, Sandusky, Ohio 44870. You do not put a comma after this period because it is the end of a sentence. The second example, we sent a postcard from Six Flags Magic Mountain, comma, because this is the place name right here. That is a place name. 26101 Magic Mountain Parkway. Parkway is the end of the street name, so there's a comma. Valencia, comma, California 91355, comma, it's in the middle of a sentence, to our neighbors. So what you will do is drag and drop the commas to where they belong in these sentences and then submit into Schoology.